Hi all, I have another very exciting game of Mikhail Tal to show you today. This is against Miguel Najdorf in the 1960 Leipzig Olympiad. And Tal was actually late for the event because of his newborn child, and so he was a parent, as well as world chess champion. And a bit of trivia before the game, Najdorf encouraged Tal to sacrifice against him. On the excellent Olymp base, there's information about the Olympiad, and there's also some trivia mentioned on the Kibitzing and Chess Games.com. But apparently, before the game, Najdorf has goaded Tal to sacrifice, dared him. So we see here e4 from Tal. Najdorf playing Sicilian Defense. We have an open Sicilian. Pretty standard so far. Bishop e3, a6, and here we have f4, b5. Black is logically trying to put pressure on the central e4 pawn. Queen f3, bishop b7 is supported. Knight bd7. It's quite a popular path in chess-based live book here, which is being followed. And now queen h3. This not only eyes h7 potentially, maybe one day e5 is useful. Not at the moment, but it also eyes e6, which has some significance, believe it or not, here, because this is another potential diagonal to black's king. We see queen c7. Everything black's played seems entirely logical, harmonious and elegant, but white's play is also pretty logical as well. Both rooks are now together. We have knight c5, and it looks as though this bishop, is going to be taken out of the equation. But with bishop f2, Tal is welcoming this possibility of losing the light square bishop. But first, black plays d5, and now whilst the bishop is unleashed with e takes d, it's extinguished with knight takes d3. Another move comes to mind, e5, but I suspect black would welcome this with knight e4. Let me just check this dynamically with you. I think black actually is technically better after knight f e4. Tal's actually got to avoid this continuation, it seems. This looks as though black's getting what he wants, which is a pretty safe position. Slightly better for black, maybe. So we see the curious looking e takes d5, because it does seem to isolate, for example, it doesn't seem as though white's going to be that aggressive after losing the light square bishop. And this pawn might also be a target on f4. We see knight takes d3, c takes, so we have an isolated pawn there as well. But there's method to the madness here, as you'd expect, because if knight takes d5 here, this wasn't played, bishop takes was played. And the reason is simply, can you spot what white can do here? If I give you 5 seconds. Okay, knight takes e6, and if takes, check, and then we can take here, and then we have a choice of bishops, and it might actually be stronger to take this one out, and white's better. Even if he drops this pawn after, white is still significantly better here, because the rooks are more active. Bishop g3 to e5 later, maybe. This is better for white. So this whole continuation is rejected, actually. We have bishop takes d5 instead. Perhaps more interesting was e takes d5 would be quite good, to be considered. But it does allow a knight into f5. After bishop takes d5, black is trying to cover that f5 square. We have knight takes d5. But now again, because of knight takes d5 and this tactical idea knight takes e6, this is rejected by black. This position here is rejected by black, and it is tricky. If rook takes f4, then queen takes a8, so that f4 pawn is not loose here. This is quite okay for white, this position. Alright, so in the game we have e takes d5, avoiding that knight takes e6 tactic, but now the knight can swing to f5. endangering the bishop. We have bishop c5, d4, and this is dangerous for black here, very dangerous. We have bishop a7, and now bishop h4 threatening immediately. Bishop takes f6, followed by like mating on g7. You know, if black didn't parry that, you see the simple threat is just simply bishop takes and mating here. So this needs to be addressed, and it seems logical just to move the knight to e4, right? So this is what is played, but now we have a really fantastic continuation. And I'll show you another defensive try, queen b6, in a moment. But can you see what white can play here, which is a really, really interesting move from an attacking player's perspective. If I give you 5 seconds, starting from now. Okay, rook takes e4, yeah, it weakens that f6 square. And now, what's the idea? Okay, bishop f6. Yeah, can't be taken because of that tactical idea, queen g3 and queen g7. g6 is out of the question, there's knight h6, checkmate. Yeah, so it can't be taken because of queen g3. And black plays queen b6, losing that key pawn which isolates these two. And now it's just really dangerous for black after bishop e5. The immediate threat is actually to play check and then knight takes f7. It's very damaging to black's king safety here. Trying to parry this, black plays queen g6. But even so, now there's still check and the queen is kicked. And here actually black resigned. He really doesn't like the look of his position. Let's see if he played on with, say, queen c6. Probably best, one of the best moves is queen h5. And out of queen c4, we have check here. Rook d1. There's a bit of life left in the position, but white is winning essentially. If check here, white is now threatening things like f6. What does black do here? If black plays f6, b3, rook takes d4 is winning a piece. If black doesn't play f6, let's say this, f6, and if it takes, the idea here, queen g4 with the threat of mate, so this pawn can't move. If king e8, check, yeah, it gets a bit complicated. Check, taking, and white's just winning here. So yeah, it seems as though basically in this final position there's a bit of play left to explain. After f5, why did black resign? So just have a look at this again. Queen h5 here. If rook e7, trying to defend that way, f6. Here, queen g4 is a killer. If the king tries to flee, bishop takes. Here we have a killing position, basically, where white's just mopping black up, threatening the rook. We have check, check. Yeah, black's just getting mopped up. So it's not something black wants to play on from. So yeah, it seems basically in this position after f5, queen c6 is falling short. I think the key move, it seems to be queen h5, the key move. If we look at something like this again, well, that's just the mate in 3, check. And if here we just do checkmate. And if here that's a mate in 2, check and mate. Yeah, so that's why this is such a killer move actually. It seems queen c4 will be the only real defense So check, and the key move here would seem to be rook d1 in this position. But also, simple and strong is just taking here. Actually, this is pretty good advantage to white as well. This position here, threatening. Knight takes f7 now potentially, and rook e4. Even if black takes. This position here is very strong for white. The king in the center like that. Yeah, there's still some stuff which can happen though. It's not as if it was like a forced mate. But yeah, it's all good for white, this kind of scenario. So yeah, but queen h5 is the key move. Now the other thing is queen g5 to check out. This is less resistance actually because of check or knight takes f7. Knight takes f7 might be the most clinical. If takes, for instance, check is a forced mate like this. This position, it's a forced mate, believe it or not. Well, I'm pretty sure you can believe it now. It's just wipe out. So yeah, in final position, yeah, it's like some people have mentioned. Did Najdorf like resign too quickly? It doesn't explain it for any spectators, but yeah, basically, if that's the key defensive resource to be able to defend like this, it's desperate times. This position is desperate times. I know white's the exchange down, but it's these fractured pawns. King safety is top priority quite often in chess. And you might think, what was wrong with, by the way, f6 here? Black actually mates then after bishop takes d4 check, because yeah, if king here, this is mating white. That's why it's important to understand these engine lines. Yeah, queen e1, and then we're mating. The key move here, it would seem, is rook d1. So it's still got the idea of f6, and it doesn't matter what black essentially does here. f6 is coming here. It's crushing. Let's say queen d5 though. One more thing. Queen d5, we can take here. f6 hitting the queen. Knight takes f7. This is pretty devastating. This position is pretty much devastation. It just carries on and on the attack. Okay, now just to blow your mind totally, earlier I mentioned I was going to check out another defense. Now here the most clinical defense instead of knight e4 is queen b6, but the lines here all favor white. Queen g3, and there's two main defenses, knight h5 or g6. Let's look at knight h5 first. Queen g5, this line with g4, this is very good for white ultimately. Follow this really crazy sequence, we get a scenario like this where white plays queen b7, and this is total madness. This engine generated line is just, I'm just showing you just in case anyone's interested. Can you see what white can play here if I give you 5 seconds? Okay, bishop takes f6. Because if king takes, we have knight g8 check. This is cute. And then in this position, guess what white plays? Okay, queen takes f7. Yeah, these are all variations under the surface of this amazing game. That I'm just showing the absolute best defensive try was queen b6. Yeah. So knight h5 is busted. With this, I mean the knight's awkward, right? But the other way you might think is to play g6, right? Queen g5, threatening things like knight h6 check and rook e7. Say knight e4, we play the check, we take here, check. we get this position with queen h6 as an example, wrestling mate. And if takes, we play bishop f6, and we're going to win the queen, and white's going to be better. Black is forced to take here, and this is just better for white, this position here. As an example, not king h1, because then bishop takes b2, no, leave the king here is best. And that means that on bishop takes b2 we have rook c7 without getting back row mated. So white's actually technically doing well here. b3, and white's doing well. He's going to be mopping up some pawns soon. Yeah, so okay, a fascinating game, but one which I guess is not going to be subject to too much attention because of that final position. I don't think it's going to be put by too many annotators on YouTube. This final position really requires actually quite significant explanation why black just resigned here after f5. But it's leading to a continuation where even with best defense, white is actually doing fantastically well. Okay, comments, questions, likes appreciated. Thanks very much.